Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. Welcome to the April edition of IFLA Talk and Share. Today, our theme is Towards Sustainable Futures, Bridging Circular Cities and Landscape Architecture. I hope you're all as excited as I am today. Please share your thoughts and engage with us via our platforms, live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. I am Alexa, and I will be your host for today. Just to briefly introduce myself, I am an assistant professor at the University of the Philippines College of Architecture under the Environmental Landscape Studio Laboratory. I am a landscape architect and a sustainability consultant specializing in LEED Green Building Certification, otherwise known as Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. To provide a brief overview of this webinar, IFLA Talk and Share is a webinar series that brings together a spectrum of scholars to delve into a range of topics, all geared towards propelling landscape design forward in the Asia Pacific region. In today's session, we will tackle circular economy and circular cities, exploring their significance for landscape architecture and the related professions. We will define these terms and uncover their interconnectedness during the discussions with our invited guests. So, to start us off, we would love to hear where the audience is from. You may scan the QR code that is displayed on your screen right now, or you may visit slido.com and enter the code hashtag 2988622 to participate in the poll. So the first question that we are all asking you tonight is, where are you currently watching the IFLA Talk and Share? For myself, I am watching from Manila, Philippines. So we would love to hear where you are all watching from. All right. Okay, so we see some are, of course, in the Philippines, Siargao Island, from Singapore, hello. From UAE, Malaysia, many are also in Manila, I believe. From the United Kingdom. All right, so it's nice that you are all here, that you have all made time for this event. We are happy to be with you. Okay, all right. So, moving forward, to deepen our insights into today's topic, we are privileged to have professionals with extensive expertise in circular economy and circular cities. So, joining us today, first we have landscape architect Damien Tang, who is the chairman of the IFLA Asia Pacific Advisory Board, the chairman of the Circular City Summit, and the past president of IFLA Asia Pacific. Damien is a distinguished leader in sustainable urban development and design, with key roles as the founder of URDX Studio and the CEO of Circular Cities Worldwide. Holding degrees in planning, architecture, and a master's in landscape architecture from the University of Melbourne, plus executive education from Cambridge University, his career spans over 20 years, mainly in Singapore's public service. He is recognized for his contributions to sustainable design and urban planning, earning numerous awards, including the Public Administration Medal conferred by the President of Singapore. Currently, he is the chairman of the Circular City Summit and the IFLA Asia Pacific Advisory Board, promoting innovative, sustainable urban living solutions. While Circular Cities Worldwide advances the development of circular economies in urban areas. Damien's work exemplifies his commitment to creating healthier, sustainable urban environments. So let's all welcome Mr. Damien Tang.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you, Alexa.
Hi, Sir Damien. Nice to see you. So for our second speaker, we have Dr. Julie Marin. She is an architectural engineer who holds a master's degree in architecture and urban design. And she is a postdoctoral researcher at the International Center of Urbanism in KU Leuven. Dr. Julie navigates public, private, and academic realms as a designer, researcher, project leader, and stakeholder connector. Trained as an architectural engineer and urban designer, she develops inter and transdisciplinary urban design strategies for place-based circular economy transition at KU Leuven's research group, Urbanism and Architecture. She practiced urban landscape design at Scape Landscape Architecture in New York City, as well as conducted research and teaching in Antwerp, Leuven, and New York. So let's all welcome Dr. Julie Marin.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for the invitation. Very excited to join you from Belgium.
Hi, Dr. Julie. Thank you for joining us. So before we start, we would like to remind everyone that questions will be addressed later during the Q&A portion of the talk. So you may leave your questions in the chat box provided. To facilitate the discussion with our speakers this evening or this morning, wherever you are watching from, I will be providing a set of guide questions for both our speakers to elaborate on. So maybe we can start with the answers of Dr. Julie, and then the conversation can be continued by Mr. Damien. All right. Okay, so for our first question, Dr. Julie, could you walk us through the concept of a circular economy?
Yes, I can. I have a few slides. Yes, here they are. So I borrowed a few slides from Circular Flanders, which is the agency in Flanders, the region in Belgium where I live, that is implementing the circular economy. So I have to say, of course, my references are European, so I would also be interested in possible different interpretations in your context. Voilà. So to put it simple, circular economy, and that today we are in a linear economy in which we extract resources from nature, we produce products, we consume those products, and then we dispose of those products. So you can see this on the left, everything ends up in a bin. In a circular economy, there is no more waste. Waste as a resource. Waste doesn't exist anymore. And in all these steps of the chain of disposal, consumption, production, and extraction, we try to recirculate these resources. So we can go to the next slide. Right. I can do it. Okay, so a famous diagram illustrating this is Ellen MacArthur Foundation's butterfly diagram. And she distinguishes this idea of circular economy in two cycles. So the one that is based on finite materials. And here we need to recycle these things by sharing, maintaining, reusing, refurbishing to keep them in the loop. And then the biocycle, which is based on renewables. So in Europe, the portion of waste in construction and demolition is 40% of all waste. Yeah, so that's why it's high on the agenda in Europe and also in the construction and demolition sector. But let's say that the bottom line of circular economy is not necessarily to have no more waste, but it is actually to reduce pressure on natural resources. So if you were born in 2010, here they made this diagram to see how much of all these materials will be left in the natural reserves, so in the mines, in the undersea, etc. And it's quite scary to see that certain of these metals, etc., or gases are almost depleted. And so that's the bottom line. And why is Europe so interested in the circular economy? Because these natural reserves are located in different areas of the world, and it is not necessarily in Europe. So in Europe especially, we need to be forerunners in this circular economy to not depend on all these reserves, because it's not, as we all know, because that the reserves are there, that they are available. This, of course, is a geopolitical question. And maybe as a final thing, an interesting article I could refer to by Callisto Friant and other researchers is he distinguishes the idea of circular economy, which is really focusing on closing material and energy resources. But since we're talking about circular cities, I appreciate a lot his definition of looking at circular society, which also includes the wealth, the power, the technology, and the knowledge needed to close these loops. So it's not just a technical question, it's much more.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Julie, for that explanation. I like what you said, or I found it very interesting when you talked about how circular economy is not about zero waste, but a way to reduce pressure on natural resources. So that was something new that I learned. And now that we know the basics of what circular economy is, Sir Damien, perhaps you could elaborate on the concept of circular cities.
Yes, sure. Also, let me share screen so that I can illustrate this better. Okay. Hang on. Now, first of all, I think it's important to understand that circular city is really, refers to an urban development and design philosophy that prioritizes sustainability, resilience, and the circular economy principles. So this is where the approach, like what Dr. Julie have mentioned, to create this closed loop system. And of course, when we actually look at a circular city, so this is where I talk about the characteristics of a circular city and what we should strive for. It's about the sustainable urban planning. So when we talk about sustainable urban planning, this is about, cities being planned with an emphasis on sustainability and includes incorporating green spaces, promoting biodiversity, designing urban areas that support both human and ecological health, which is what we as landscape architects are probably good at. Now, the next thing is about resource efficiency. So this is where cities starts to optimize resource use by creating systems that circulate resources within the city. So this could include, water recycling, energy efficient buildings, and waste to energy technologies, etc. Now, there is this important part, which of course, as landscape architects, we probably did not expose ourselves in our training with this. This is the economic model integration. Because as you can tell, circular economy, there's this word economy. So it actually have to integrate the economic model supporting businesses and industries that prioritize sustainability, reuse materials, and minimize environmental impact. So this becomes very important when we actually, design city. And like what Dr. Julie said, it's not just about the physical design of the city itself, but the invisible systems like the economic side of things. And then it begins to layer over mobility and transportation, where transportation in circular cities really focuses on reducing emissions. It could be through electric public transport, bike sharing programs, and pedestrian-friendly design that reduces the reliance on private vehicles or very individual or independent vehicle. Now, another crucial part is the community engagement, because I think it's important to involve community participation in decision-making processes, especially in matters related to environmental sustainability and also urban development, which again, I think this is something that as landscape architects, we are exposed to. Now, another part of things begins to go deeper because cities are made up of a lot of buildings and infrastructure. So it has to start to be designed for longevity, adaptability, and disassembly. And sometimes the use of sustainable materials and techniques is emphasized to reduce the environmental footprint of construction and ensuring buildings can be easily repurposed or even recycled. Lastly, of course, the waste and material management. And this is also something that I think as landscape architects, we should be aware of how when we design, waste reduction is a key aspect. So with system in place for effective recycling, it could be resources for water, it could be for energy, or of course, composting is one very common example, and even conversion of waste material into new products of energy. So you can see that this circular cities is not just by one single party, but different professions, different stakeholders coming together without depleting the natural resources. And because circular economy or circular city has three very basic principles. As what Dr. Julie have mentioned, one is to eliminate waste and pollution. The second one is, to ensure materials are generated or circulated at the highest level or highest value. Now, the last one is regenerate nature, which we as landscape architects are really, or would consider ourselves, in the business of. Now, another slide I want to show you, which I have also, taken from the Guide to Circular Cities. This Guide to Circular Cities is under the United for Smart and Sustainable Cities. And the guide it was actually, spearheaded by one of the UN agencies. And also, in total, there are 17 United Nations agencies that came up with this guide. And I thought it's quite important for me just to quickly share this. Now, when we talk about 4 key components of the Circular Cities Implementation Framework, this is what it refers to. The city assets and products. And you can see on the right-hand side, this is the breakdown. Under the city's assets and products, this is the city infrastructure. Then there are city resources. That means it could be the natural resources and also even waste as resources. And lastly, it is the city goods and services. So if you actually see in the whole entire city, I won't go into the breakdown of everyone. There are many different parts and components that we can actually use these assets and products to design with, or to actually go into the next level of action, which is called the circular actions. These outcome-oriented actions are really, specific to how we, implement actions by sharing, recycling, refurbishing, reusing, replacing, and digitizing. Now, again, these six aspects, again, is also came out by the whole United Nations initiative, because specifically each and every one serve a very specific function. And you can see even digitizing. Why digitizing is very important in this age and era is because a lot of data, and because why AI exists is because of big data. The moment we have data, we are able to share. And when we are able to share, we can actually amalgamate, we can actually make better decisions. And this is why digitizing becomes very important. And when we talk about, carbon emission and so on, again, all these data slowly next time when we have to, as landscape architects, we need to slowly input into the entire system. Now, the third one is circular city inputs. They are the results of when circular action items are applied to the city assets and products. And finally, circular city enablers. We as landscape architects, we are enablers. So, whether supplementary, complementary items that we, or even services that we are used to catalyze and support the whole entire circular city outputs. So I hope this, very brief introduction of what circular city becomes clearer for all of us as landscape architects, or even there are architects and planners among us, to understand, what areas and what aspect we can actually play a part and deep dive into the different aspect to make a contribution to it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sir Damien. Yes, I think it's very important as landscape architects for us to understand what you were saying about knowing the characteristics of what makes a circular city, the components of a circular city. We may not always see it. Sometimes it's invisible. So I think these slides were very helpful for all of us to for you to have shared with us the idea of making resources circulate in order to close the loop. Going back to what Dr. Julie was saying about loosening the pressure on natural resources. So it's all very layered, and we're learning a lot during this webinar. So thank you for that. So our next guide question, this is for both Dr. Julie and Sir Damien. What are the effective examples, or what are some effective examples of projects developed with the principles of a circular economy, and how are these regarded as effective examples? So Dr. Julie, perhaps we can start with you.
Yeah, sure. I can show some slides again. Yeah, so this slide maybe makes a bit of a bridge also to the previous question of also you asked about what is a circular city. So I would like to get into the one on the top left and the bottom right, because these are two examples of circular cities. The one in the top left, maybe many of you know it, Masdar City, which was constructed in the desert and claimed to be back, I think it was in 2015, around that period, to be the world's first circular city. So a new city built in the desert, what was formerly the desert, but then within its functioning, zero waste and all these resource efficient techniques, etc. Then moving to the one in the bottom right is an example in France, in the periphery of Paris. And here, actually, the definition of circular city is it's all existing buildings, it's an existing community. And what they did is actually they made loops in, for example, rainwater. So all the rainwater falling on the roofs, they would capture and as a community use it in community gardens where they would grow food. And this was actually quite a political, let's say, interpretation of what is a circular city. They said, okay, it's not because the rainwater falls on your roof that it's yours. It's a common. And so I just wanted to bring in these two to touch on the point that maybe, well, for example, the example in Masdar City, looking back again at the point of circular economy, reducing pressure on natural resources, it might be perfectly circularly functioning in its functioning, but still it did require a raw material resource extraction and it occupied a new piece of land. Yeah? So just to show these two examples. And so another few of examples I will quickly run through are very local from Belgium. And you will see on the top of the slide something coming back that I will get into later. So here it's a redevelopment of a dock area in Ghent. And this is all new as well. There used to be buildings before, but they were replaced. And here they have introduced a cooperative in which all owners are shareholders in recirculating their wastewater, their waste flows, etc. So circularity is more, let's say, in the occupation and the usage than in the building itself. The buildings are new, as was in Mazar City. Then, as you see, I'm in the triangle going up in the ladder, so I'll get back to that later. Here you see an initiative, and we have more of those in Belgian cities and in the Netherlands, and of course abroad as well. It exists, of a materials bank. So what they do here in Leuven is they recover wood waste flows from demolishings, from houses and other buildings that are demolished, and they group it in the materials bank where people can come and buy these materials to then use in their new products. And so here, no more resource extraction required and reuse of existing buildings, materials. Here, one step higher on the ladder is the repurposing of existing buildings. And so this is not just a repurposing of a building, but I'm drawing attention to the fund that is behind it, which is called City Makers Fund, which is really an organization, a real estate developer. But their main goal is to have societal added value. And so what they do is they collect funds to then buy buildings that would, in typical real estate development, only be fit to be demolished, but they build with the community and experiments and temporary occupations, new programs to save these buildings and also save resources in this way. So at the same time, building community and also saving resources in a circular way. Then another one here, an example of co-housing. We have quite a few of those these last few years here as well. So an old school building that is now housing, I would say, 20 families, which all share a big garden and all have their individual unit, but they also share a big common room, a playroom for the children, etc. And you can imagine if all these people would live in the typical Belgian way, they would have a freestanding house in the countryside. But there's no room for that. So also very circular in the sense that it is avoiding all these new buildings and sharing what they have together. And then on top, let's say, of the hierarchy, an example in the Netherlands, which is called De Keuvel, and is now all developed as a circular city district, but it all started with this pilot project that you see in the middle that was really landscape-based. There was pollution, and there they did experiments with phytoremediation, and at the same time bringing in all shipwrecks to have a sort of community building there to experiment with phytoremediation and all these creative practices of circularity, and which basically was sort of a catalyst for a bigger redevelopment. And so bringing all these together, I actually climbed these steps of a ladder that we, for ourselves, use, which tries to keep our focus on the core of circularity in that we want to pursue, which is really this, and I'm very happy to have heard it as well with Mr. Tang. The base is really to regenerate soil and nature, because any resource that we use, be it clay or wood or anything else, it's coming from nature. And so taking care of nature and making sure that landscapes can regenerate and soil can regenerate is the basis for anything that is a circular city. Then, of course, if we can avoid building, I always think I'm trained as an architect and now I'm advocating for not building, but it's just how it's going. Maybe we think as an architect, okay, we have a program, we have to build, but maybe there's solutions of sharing or finding alternatives through digital solutions, etc., to not build. Then repurposing the building that I showed that would be fit to be demolished because it appears unuseful, but can perfectly be repurposed in a creative way. Recycling materials from other buildings to then in the end only build, let's say, new constructions that can be circular as well, in the sense that the research that's going on here, and that's probably also known to you, is building with material passports and making sure that it can be easily dismantled after end-of-life usage. But for us, that would be like, let's say, the last step in the whole chain. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Julie. Sir Damien, would you also like to show us some examples of projects?
Yeah, okay. Before I show any examples, in fact, the way I would take on this question is really, to me, right now, while there are certain cities strive to be circular cities, or even like what Dr. Julie shared, have aspects of a circular city. But I think to have a fully circular city, I think many cities are still working hard towards it. And also, what I'll be sharing, in fact, we as landscape architects, we are, let me just show the screen. Actually, I wouldn't say that, I'm sharing that really inform us that actually we as landscape architects, we're already in this area where we're actually quite good at what we do. And you can even see like from the recent to the past, outstanding projects in the IFLA, Asia Pacific region, and the way we use some of the existing infrastructures and also reuse water resources and actually look at how projects can actually rejuvenate itself and the nature. So from master planning to parks project to public spaces to very localized. In fact, even when I look at Singapore itself, we have been in recycling or reusing our water. And actually, the way I look at it, Singapore as a circular city, although we didn't brand ourselves as circular city, we have efficiently and effectively reused our water resources. And thanks to PUB, because of how we managed to dam up, the rivers, and also how we, use the 4 taps that we have, the new water, import of water, and also, desalination and so on. So I think it is good to understand that when we talk about circular city, is not just certain aspect. Of course, just now I brought everyone through, what are the characteristics of circular city. So that is why, I am quite reluctant to say, which is the perfect circular city. Maybe there's no perfection, but rather, in everything that we do, how can we actually start to spread this system of thinking? Now, this is also the next slide that I just want to quickly show you how, when we talk about circular action, if we actually look at, the previous slides that I have shared, where are the things that we can do sharing? What are the, resources or assets and products? If, of course, the list on the left can build upon, buildings, public spaces, infrastructure, air, water, energy, and what else? And then what are the aspects that we as landscape architects or designers or architects or planners can recycle, in terms of policies, in terms of how we say, certain, industrial areas, what do we refurbish, what do we recycle, what do we reuse? So along this line, which I want to emphasize, the circular action, it is exactly what are the actions as landscape architects we could do in our projects. And even when we actually talk about sharing, just as an example, instead of just proposing any of the activities, are those activities on a sharing platform? Are those activities actually using anything recycled? And we all know that even for all of us as designers and landscape architects, we are very good in already using local material and also implement rainwater harvesting, having some of the permeable surfaces designed for biodiversity, ecosystem, native planting, habitat creation, composting, and also flexible use of green spaces. So if you actually think about it, it seems like we are already into circular design. But later part, I will also share with you what are the gaps, and maybe I will leave that for a while till the next question, which of course, having a hindsight of knowing what the next questions are. And more importantly, I think about the regenerating nature, like what Dr. Julie say, as we use all these circular actions, are we able to use less resources and let the earth, the natural resources regenerate itself? And one thing that I also want to emphasize, when we keep talking about nature, regenerating nature, not to forget, we as human beings, we are part of nature. And there's a big portion of the equation that is missing is how do we regenerate ourselves in terms of social well-being and mental well-being. So that is why, even when, I actually founded URDX, which is about regenerating, user experience and individual well-being, is all about the third principles of regenerating nature. So maybe with that, I will just conclude here for this question and wait for the other questions to come out. Thanks.
Thank you, Sir Damien. So I thought it was really interesting that from the examples that Dr. Julie showed, with especially, repurposing buildings, and what Sir Damien was talking about proper stormwater management. Obviously, there are a lot of aspects in what makes a city circular, and I thought also that it was really interesting when you said, Sir Damien, that maybe there's not one perfect example of a circular city, but everybody is trying to do what they can, because these are all concepts that we are familiar with. Perhaps we're not experts, but everybody is doing what they can, and we are learning more about it. So proceeding with the next question. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we proceed with the next question, we will take a short break. We will invite the audience to participate in a quick quiz based on the discussion earlier. So if the audience could please scan the QR code displayed on the screen right now, or visit slido.com and enter the code #2988622 to participate in the poll. So the question that we have for everyone today is, what is the primary goal of a circular economy? So the choices are there on the screen. We will give you some time to answer. All right. Okay. So 100% of the audience answered to create a closed loop system. Okay. There are some new answers coming in. Okay, so 69% of the audience answered to create a closed loop system where resources are reused, recycled, and regenerated to reduce environmental impact, which is in fact the correct answer, to create a closed loop system. Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for participating in that quiz. All right. So for the next, with the next question. So Sir Damien, perhaps you could answer this question first. The question is, how can landscape architects actively participate in the implementation of a circular economy model in their projects?
Okay, so I actually explained of what we as landscape architects we are good at. Now, maybe let me share what are the gaps. Now, you'll be surprised that many of this is currently or may not even be something that we are actually familiar with. There may be some that we are. Okay, let's take for example advanced material technology. Now, for those who actually did follow me on the LinkedIn post, you can see that I shared some of these gaps initially, but I will elaborate each and every one of it. So really the gap to fill for advanced material technology, because now at this age, material, nanotechnology, everything are improving so fast at such a great speed. So, there are technologies that are even developed, such as, biodegradable composites or materials with lower carbon footprint. So what we really need to know is really, encourage ongoing education and partnership with material scientists or even solutions provider to stay at the forefront of sustainable material innovations. Now, the second one is system thinking. We are very good at what we do in our projects, but I think it's also key where we can influence system thinking, to think about systems and influence, fellow architects or engineers, where we have room to deepen this understanding together with them in terms of how urban systems can integrate more seamlessly with the natural systems. So it's really about this whole fostering of the interdisciplinary collaboration with urban planners, architects, engineers to develop holistic solutions that functions across multiple skills and systems. Now, the next one is, quantitative analysis skills, the ability to quantify the benefits of design choices in terms of energy savings, reduced emissions, water management, and economic impact. And this has been increasingly important. And the way to actually move forward with an action is really to integrate training in environmental impact assessment or cost benefit analysis into some of the professional development curricula. Now, of course, policy influence and development. We know that we are actually at the forefront, that we can influence many different policy and projects, but we may not be even doing that at this point. And actually, in America, the landscape architects are really pushing this and influencing government policies and the way public spaces are being designed. So this is where I will also urge everyone to advocate more actively, whether through the profession or through the association, to actually influence and guide urban development towards sustainable practices and circular economy. First, by showing, of course, we have awards to showcase, our capability, but also at the same time, how we continue engagement, not just on design, but on policy level. Now, the fifth one is really the life cycle assessment, something which I believe, including myself in the past, we don't look into this. So how do we understand the full life cycle impact of landscape interventions? That is something not commonly practiced in the field. So how we implement this LCA training to evaluate the environmental impacts associated with all the different stages of a project's life, from material extractions, through to the end of life, and then back again if there is this cradle-to-cradle system. So again, I think there's a lot to digest. Let me just quickly go into technology and data utilization. So it's about utilizing technology for better data collection. And as you can see, a lot of all this requires data and how we input data and collect it, followed by community engagement and also the social dynamics. I wouldn't go deep into this. I think everyone knows how with changing climate condition, there's a need for more robust and adaptive and resilient design strategies. So after we design something, or before we even design something, what is the adaptive or the resilient design strategies that actually can make this project even last longer, even when climate extreme hits the project. Of course, there's this circular economy integration where the concepts of this landscape architecture practice emerging with some economic models and how to actually understand businesses coming into any parts of the project or even policy. So lastly, of course, it's all about this education and awareness that we need to first put all of us through. And good that we have this talk and share. At least now you begin to know, as landscape architects, our next phase of learning are also towards some of these circular cities. So I think I will leave the rest of the time to Dr. Julie. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Damien. So our audience may also share your thoughts. You may share your thoughts on how landscape architects and other professionals can play an active role in implementing the circular economy model in your project. So what are the essential steps to achieving the goal of creating circular cities? You may feel free to answer your to type in your answers in the chat box. So now we move on to Dr. Julie.
Yes, thank you. So the role landscape architects could play, that's a question in circular cities. Well, I think first of all, the circular economy in landscape, etc., it's really not something we should consider as new. If we look at history, we see many good examples of, let's say, a balanced interplay between humans and nature. And this is an image of a landscape in Belgium. This is sheep herder, and the way his sheep herd the land. He moves with them across the land to distribute the nutrients. He collects the wool. They put their houses next to the water. The nutrients go to the farm to fertilize. And so basically this let's say, interplay between how humans use natural resources is is just in a very cyclic way. So you could say that is also circular. It's cyclic. It's in cycles, and it's taking the time of nature to play their role in that. And I am thinking also of the book of 96 by Girardet, Gaia Atlas of Cities, where he spoke about ancient civilizations such as Rome. And he said the Roman civilization had actually quite a linear metabolism, because in the end, Rome collapsed amidst a completely depleted hinterland. Whereas the examples that he shows of circular metabolisms, they are all, let's say, ancient Asian cities, in which this practice and this knowledge of having these cycles of fertilizers, etc., was much more already ingrained. Same thing goes for recovering materials. Now we have all these innovative projects over here of recovering materials, but then before industrialization, this was just like a building that was being sold to demolish. So the buildings were sold as material stock. So it's also, let's say, culturally, like this valuing and appreciating a material for what it is, and then taking the time and the effort to dismantle it, to clean it, and then to reuse it, which is a completely gone in our economy, where things have to move fast and materials have to be quickly processed, and it's cheaper to demolish than to do this, right? But okay, landscape architects, for me, I always say circular economy begins and ends in the landscape, because this is a map of a sand extraction pit in Flanders. And then years later, after the sand was extracted, they turned it into a landfill. Yes? So already in the whole chain, the beginning and the end, the same place, but look at the impact on the landscape, right? And so today, within circular economy discourses, they are now trying to remine this waste that's in the soil for rare metals, and they're extracting gases, etc. So this whole cycle going on spatially in the landscape and transforming the landscape. Then I think in terms of drawings, landscape architects are very good at interplay between all these flows going on between businesses, but from buildings to land, etc., in relation to topography, to water management, to the transformation of, let's say, the section. And that's why I think the deep section, this is something I learned from landscape architecture, is really something very powerful, to see it as an integrated thing. And then what was said before as well is this education and awareness, also to engage with any kind of stakeholder, policymaker, let's say commissioner, and to show through design how this approach through landscape and this importance of landscape in this goals of circular economy to reduce pressure on natural resources. Landscape architects are key in that. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Julie and Sir Damien. Again, some very interesting points. Sir Damien, you mentioned the gaps that we need to address, especially in terms of systemic thinking. I think as landscape architects, by virtue of being landscape architects, we need to be able to think systemically, because everything is interconnected when we deal with the landscape. We also need to know where our materials come from, which is, again, is also very important. Many of the times we leave this out because data is not readily available so much all the time. And of course, education and awareness, which also Dr. Julie, you were talking about, very, very important points. So thank you so much for that. Again, the audience is also free to type in your answers of what you think landscape architects can do. So now we will proceed to the question and answer portion, where we will be taking questions from the audience. So I believe we already have one question from the audience. Okay. So the question is, in numerous urban areas, repurposing old buildings often incurs higher costs compared to constructing new ones. How might we better engage developers in the process? So this is from Thad Patradun.
Yeah. So okay, maybe let me answer that one, because I was also involved in this conversations and also the workshop with CPG on the repurposing of buildings. I think first of all, architects needs to do the assessment of repurposing, because when we repurpose a building to something else, there is also certain functions or certain engineering constraints that certain functions or certain purpose can't be, repurposed to certain expectation. For example, let's say a commercial building, if you want to repurpose to residential, you have to understand, of course, all the regulatory requirements, fire escapes requirements, and so on. And there are certain things that you could do and certain things you can't do. And then what are the feasibility of the repurposing? Now, not to say that then we can't repurpose, but also, how much we can repurpose and certain things we have to do certain functions or certain purpose to it. So I think there is a lot of innovations that also needed. And also, I think this also up the game for architects to really understand the cost, the cost benefits analysis and so on, to understand, how much does it cost to repurpose. And of course, it's also not just pushing onto the developers. Of course, no developers will come from the cost point. But at the same time, there is also the part that the government from the policies level need to come down. Because slowly in the future, even when developers say, no, because of cost, we are not going to incur 20, 30% more. But if policy level from the government point say that we have to do this, we have to go through certain assessment and making sure all developers need to go through these processes after the certain buildings reach 70 years, 80 years, whatever, then it is about there's no choice. So I guess every cities will take different timings to actually reach certain stages, or also even the competencies of architects and engineers assessing the buildings for repurposing or refurbishing and so on. So I guess it's not so a direct answer to these questions, but really understand the development and evolution of how we actually have policies in place to actually support repurposing for cities. Yeah.
Thank you, Sir Damien. Dr. Julie, would you like to add to that?
Well, maybe, yes, maybe I could go a bit deeper into the example I showed of the City Makers Fund, so which is this project developer that is repurposing old buildings that are often, let's say, when you would assess them, they wouldn't be interesting to repurpose them. So what they see, they're also not protected as heritage. So it's really this in-between thing. But they often do have an important role in, let's say, collective memory, etc. So what they do with their fund is they really have a completely different business model for project development, where they collect funds from people who really support their mission to have a societal added value in the project. But this doesn't mean that it's economically not feasible. So this is what I always find quite impressive. It's not just an idealistic thing, but it's really all the numbers are correct and the return on investment and all these things. But they basically find interested investors who I think see that it's going wrong in the current economic model, right? Like who don't want cities just to be erased, to be then redeveloped with just developments that nobody can afford, etc. And it seems to gain some traction. So yeah, I think there's also a path there.
Thank you, Dr. Julie. So that's very interesting. The repurposing of old buildings we were discussing. It's not, it's not just sustainable, and it's not just, one of the answers to a circular economy, but it's also important, especially in preserving the culture of a place, which is also very important. So that's very interesting. So are there any other questions? Perhaps we could answer some more questions from our audience. This isn't a question, but more of a comment from Misato Uehara, who said thank you for the wonderful discussion. Sharing of information materials and experiences is so important, and sharing among landscape architects is especially crucial. Rather than sharing weapons or enforcing rules, it would be great to share tips for happiness and create programs that support this both economically and through crowdfunding, for example. Okay. So would you like to share your thoughts on that, Sir Damien or Dr. Julie?
No, I think well, there's a beautiful statement from Misato. Of course, in fact, what I have mentioned is I think the sharing of information and data becomes something that not just landscape architects, but the whole of professions and interdisciplinary, our consultants and professionals need to do. But of course, instead of waiting for other people to share, I think we as landscape architects, we should be sharing that internally, because I know there are different firms, big and small, and sometimes you have this data. So if even as maybe I also can just throw out one suggestions. When certain data, for example, how the use of certain materials generate what kind of carbon footprint, whether Asia Pacific region or IFLA world could start to actually bring together all these different knowledge, categorize them, put it in data to say that this number of the materials or this kind of material emits so much and used where. I think this will slowly grow and becomes very important and good resources for us to tap, and then we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then the more we actually generate it, the more we can actually use AI to actually give us certain information quickly in the future. So I think digitizing is really something that we should be aiming for, even as a fraternity ourselves.
Thank you, Sir Damien. Dr. Julie, would you have any thoughts on this comment?
Yes, sure. Yes, of course. I absolutely agree with what he's saying, and I think this initiative that you set up here is already quite a nice example of that. Or yeah, so
Okay, thank you, Dr. Julie. Um, so it seems like uh, there are no more questions in the chat box. So again, we would like to thank Dr. Julie and Sir Damien for this wonderful discussion. Um, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to you, Dr. Julie and Sir Damien, for your enlightening contributions. We hope our audience, has gained valuable insights from our discussion. I certainly have had or have gained valuable insights. Just to maybe end with what Dr. Julie was saying about how circular economy begins and ends with the landscape. So we really shouldn't take that for granted as landscape architects. We have so much to contribute, especially with the concepts and characteristics that that Sir Damien was talking about earlier. So we hope everyone learned a lot from this this particular webinar. Perhaps we would like to, Sir Damien and Dr. Julie, would you like to share some final thoughts with the audience? Maybe we could start with Sir Damien.
Well, I only want to share one thing that is a little pitch of this advertisement, which we have initiated last year, and this is also what I hope landscape architects can come together to actually unite with the rest of the profession. So Circular City Summit is happening in Dubai this year from 11 to 12 September. Of course, as landscape architects, we know IFLA is happening in Turkey on the 4th to 6th September. So maybe it's not too far to just hang on there and fly over to Dubai for those going to Turkey. And of course, why we have this Circular City Summit, and you can see the last year, the first edition, it comes with 4 global organizations, IFLA, ISOCUP, WFEO, and also witnessed by URA, coming together to sign the landmark MOU to collaborate and actually set a roadmap for circular cities. This year, we gathered another 4, the International Association of Horticulture Producers, the World Green Infrastructure Network, the International Society for Urban Health, and also the Society for Sustainability and Green Materials. So with these 8 organizations, it becomes really a force to be reckoned with, that we can and we should be collaborating across. So this is where I just hope that we as landscape architects, we play our part and also work together, network with the fellow professions and come to this event. So this is all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Damien. Perhaps many of the landscape architects will be interested in joining that. So, Dr. Julie, would you have any final thoughts that you would like to share with us, with the audience?
Yes, so mainly I would like to thank you. It was a very pleasant exchange. I have the feeling I traveled a bit, so that's nice. No, and maybe to touch upon something Sir Damien said, that in North America, landscape architects really, yeah, let's say, are key players in the spatial profession. I experienced that when I studied there urban design and then worked in a landscape architecture office, how it was really amazing, how indeed, in terms of I would say of systemic thinking and drawing, still, yeah, there's so much in your toolbox as landscape architects to really take up that role. And yeah, just yeah, wanted to say that. And otherwise, thank you for the invitation.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Julie. So, with those parting words, again, we would like to thank everyone for joining the IFLA APR Talk and Share for April, focusing on the theme of Towards Sustainable Futures, Bridging Circular Cities and Landscape Architecture. We appreciate your participation via Facebook and YouTube. A special thank you to the technical team and organizers for making this event possible. So we invite you to share your thoughts and suggestions about today's session. Feel free to jot down any topic requests for the next IFLA APR Talk and Share series on our feedback form. Your input helps us improve and deliver more impactful discussions in the future. So stay tuned for the next IFLA APR Talk and Share session. I think some of the events will be coming up on your screen right now. Okay. So we will see you at the next IFLA APR Talk and Share. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you.
So goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Nice meeting you. Bye.
Nice to meet you.